The day began like a painting, soft light brushing across Elara's face, the distant hum of morning traffic, and the scent of coffee drifting from the kitchen of her small but cozy apartment. Life, for all its imperfections, felt steady. She had her parents, her career just beginning to bloom, and Leo, her boyfriend, her anchor, the man who had taught her that love could be both steady and exhilarating. Her phone buzzed on the counter, an unfamiliar number flashing across the screen. She hesitated, her hand hovering, then answered. "Hello." A voice. Flat. Official. The kind of voice that carried weight. "Is this Miss Elara Monroe?" "Yes." "There's no easy way to say this. Your parents were in a car accident." "I'm so sorry." "They didn't make it." The world tipped. Her knees buckled, the phone slipped from her trembling hands and clattered against the floor. The coffee pot hissed in the background, oblivious. All Elara could hear was the roar of her own heartbeat, drowning out reason, drowning out everything. Her parents. Gone. She crumpled against the counter, sobs tearing through her chest. Her vision blurred, her body numb. The cozy apartment that once felt like a sanctuary suddenly became suffocating. Then warmth. Strong arms wrapping around her, pulling her against a steady chest. Leo. He must have let himself in with the spare key. She hadn't even heard him come in. "Elara." His voice broke, husky with sympathy. "I'm here. I've got you. You don't have to go through this alone." She clung to him like a lifeline, her tears soaking his shirt. His cologne, cedar and musk, was grounding, but even that couldn't stop the avalanche of grief crushing her. "I don't know what to do," she whispered, her voice raw. "You don't need to know. Just breathe. One breath at a time. Come with me, to my family's house. You shouldn't be alone right now." Her sobs quieted into hiccups. The thought of returning to her childhood home, now just an echo of memories, was unbearable. His offer sounded like salvation. She nodded numbly. And so began the journey that would change everything. The Thornawood estate rose from the hills like a monument to another era. Its towering stone facade, arched windows, and wrought iron gates whispered of old money and secrets hidden in every crevice. The mansion wasn't just large, it breathed intimidation. Elara's breath caught as they pulled into the long, winding driveway lined with manicured hedges. "Leo, this looks like something out of a magazine." Leo smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Home sweet home. You'll be safe here." But the moment Elara stepped into the grand foyer, she knew she was not welcome. The air was cool, the marble floors gleamed, and from the grand staircase descended a woman who looked carved from ice. Serafina Thornawood. Leo's mother was elegance personified, her hair perfectly coiffed, her silk blouse pristine. But her eyes were shards of glass, dissecting Elara with one glance. "So, this is Elara," Serafina said, her tone smooth but dripping with disdain. "The guest." Elara forced a polite smile, though her stomach knotted. "Thank you for having me." Serafina's lips curved into something resembling a smile, but it was cold, calculated. "You've suffered such a tragedy. Of course, you'll need somewhere to stay. We wouldn't dream of leaving Leo's companion out in the cold." Companion. The word stung. Leo shifted uncomfortably. "Mother, she's my girlfriend." "Of course," Serafina replied airily, already turning away. "Dinner is at 7. Don't be late." As the echo of her heels faded, Elara whispered to Leo, "She doesn't like me. She's just difficult with everyone. Don't let it get to you." But Elara couldn't shake the feeling that she had just stepped into a stage where every move would be scrutinized, every word weighed. This wasn't a home. This was a palace of ice, and she was a trespasser. Days at Thornawood Estate stretched endlessly. The mansion was beautiful, yes, but beauty could be suffocating when paired with silence. Elara wandered its endless halls, feeling smaller with each passing day. Leo, once her safe harbor, began to drift. At first, it was subtle. He spent more time with his brothers, less with her. His texts became shorter, his smiles rarer. One evening, as they sat in the library surrounded by shelves of dusty leather-bound books, Leo leaned back in his chair. "Elara, have you thought about, your future? Your parents' estate?" The words hit her like a slap. "Leo, I just lost them. I can't even think about that right now. He raised his hands defensively. I know. I'm just saying, you shouldn't let lawyers or banks take advantage of you. You need someone you can trust. Like you? She asked softly, searching his face. Of course. He smiled, but it was thin, strained. That night, as she lay awake in the ornate guest room, staring at the gilded ceiling, unease twisted in her stomach. Was this grief clouding her mind? Or was Leo changing before her eyes? Elara turned to her work for refuge. Architecture had always been her passion, the act of sketching lines that would one day become walls, roofs, homes. Her sketchbook became her therapy, each blueprint a world she could control when her own was spiraling. One night, unable to sleep, she sat in the grand hall, pencil scratching across paper. The silence was thick, broken only by the distant hum of the estate's heating system. Then, voices. Low, urgent, carrying through the cavernous space. She froze, straining to listen. Leo. Serafina. Debts are piling up, Leo, Serafina hissed. We can't keep this up forever. I'm working on it, Leo snapped. This house isn't going anywhere. Foreclosure doesn't wait. Do you understand? This is our last chance. Elara's heart pounded. She pressed her sketchbook closed, her fingers trembling. Foreclosure. Debt. Their perfect world was unraveling, and they were desperate. She tiptoed back to her room, pretending she had heard nothing. But the words clung to her mind like cobwebs. Debt. Foreclosure. Our last chance. Was she part of their plan? The task she dreaded most came too soon, packing up her childhood home. Every drawer she opened was a wound, every photograph a reminder of what she had lost. In her father's study, she lingered. The oak desk bore scratches from years of use, the chair still carried the faint scent of his cologne. She ran her hand along the wood, and something clicked. A panel shifted. Curious, she pressed harder, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a leather-bound box, worn but sturdy. Her hands shook as she opened it. Bundles of cash. More than she had ever imagined her father possessed. And a letter, neatly folded. Her breath caught as she recognized his handwriting. My dearest Elara, if you are reading this, then fate has dealt a cruel hand. I leave this to you, not because of its value, but because I trust your judgment. Money reveals truths about people that words never will. Trust your instincts. Be wise. Be brave. Dad. Tears blurred her vision, dripping onto the letter. A chill ran down her spine, not from the draft seeping through the old house, but from the weight of his words. Trust your instincts. She clutched the letter to her chest, her father's voice echoing in her heart. And for the first time since the accident, she felt not just grief, but resolve. The coffee shop buzzed with chatter, the hiss of steaming milk, and the aroma of roasted beans. Elara welcomed the noise. It was a relief from the suffocating silence of the Thornawood mansion. She slid into a corner booth, sketchbook in hand, when a familiar voice cut through the din. Elara, is that you? She looked up. Liam Harper. Tall, casually handsome, a mischievous glint in his eyes. He had been one of Leo's university acquaintances, someone she'd seen at parties years ago. Liam, she said, surprised. Wow. Haven't seen you in forever. Mind if I sit? She hesitated, then nodded. Conversation felt safer with someone outside the icy walls of Thornawood. They exchanged pleasantries, catching up on careers and mutual friends. Then, casually, Liam leaned back and sipped his latte. So, how's life with Leo? Must be interesting, living in that museum of a house. Elara smiled weakly. It's different. Liam chuckled. I'll bet. You heard about his gambling problem. The words landed like a grenade. Elara blinked. What? Liam tilted his head, surprised. Oh, you didn't know? Yeah, everyone knows. Cards, sports betting, you name it. Nearly lost his car once. The Thornawoods aren't exactly the dynasty they pretend to be. They're drowning, Elara. Keeping up appearances, barely keeping their heads above water. Her throat tightened. The whispers in the mansion, the strange tension in Leo's tone, Serafina's cold precision, it all clicked. She forced a laugh, though it sounded hollow. "That's news to me." Liam leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Be careful, Elara. Families like theirs, they'll take what they need to survive." She nodded numbly, her coffee turning bitter on her tongue. As Liam left with a casual wave, Elara sat frozen, the noise of the cafe fading into background static. The facade was cracking, and she was standing in the middle of it. The Thornwoods were hosting a gala, a glittering evening of gowns, champagne, and polite conversation. Elara felt out of place in her simple black dress, though Maya had assured her it was elegant. She spent most of the evening hovering near the edges, nursing a glass of sparkling water. Then the lights dimmed. A spotlight swung toward the grand staircase. And there was Leo, descending with a confident smile that looked rehearsed. "Elara Monroe," his voice rang out, amplified by the microphone. "From the moment I met you, I knew my life had changed forever. You are my everything, my future, my reason." Gasps rippled through the crowd as he knelt, producing a velvet box. Inside, a diamond ring glittered under the lights, its brilliance blinding. "Elara," Leo said, voice trembling just enough to seem sincere. "Will you marry me?" The room erupted into applause. Cameras flashed. Guests leaned forward eagerly, hungry for drama. Elara's heart pounded. The ring was dazzling, but as she looked at Leo's face, she didn't see love, she saw desperation. His eyes were wide, not with passion, but with fear. Fear of losing something. Or someone. The whispers from Liam, her father's letter, Serafina's cold eyes, all collided in her mind. He wasn't proposing to her. He was proposing to her inheritance. She forced a smile, her voice steady despite the chaos in her chest. "Leo, this is so sudden." The crowd murmured. Leo's smile faltered, but he pressed the ring toward her. "Elara, say yes." Every instinct screamed at her to refuse. But surrounded by eyes, she slipped the ring onto her finger, plastering on a smile. "Yes," she whispered, the word tasting like ash. The applause thundered, but in Elara's heart, silence reigned. The next day, Elara met Maya at their favorite diner, the kind of place where the waitresses called you Han, and the coffee never stopped flowing. Maya was everything Serafina wasn't: warm, sharp, fiercely loyal. Elara held out her hand, the diamond catching the neon lights. "He proposed." Maya arched an eyebrow. "And you said yes. Please tell me you're planning something." Elara sighed. "I couldn't humiliate him in front of everyone." "But Maya, it's not love. It's about money. Liam told me everything, about the gambling, the debts. They're drowning." Maya leaned forward, her eyes sparking with mischief. "So they think you're their lifeline? Oh, sweetie, we can flip this. Give them exactly what they want, and take everything." Elara blinked. "What do you mean?" "You said the house is crumbling under debt, right? Well, I'm a real estate agent. I can find a way in. You don't have to marry him to prove a point. You could own that house." Elara's stomach flipped. The idea was outrageous. Reckless. But as Maya sketched out the plan on a napkin, an anonymous offer, an airtight clause ensuring the Thornwoods walked right into her trap, something hardened inside her. "They treated you like dirt, Elara," Maya reminded her. "This isn't revenge. It's survival. And maybe justice." Elara closed her eyes, her father's words echoing. "Trust your instincts." When she opened them, her decision was made. "Let's do it." The documents sat in front of her, pristine, waiting. Maya slid the final page across the table. "Sign here. The offer goes through me. The Thornwoods will never know it's you." Elara's hand shook as she picked up the pen. The offer was generous, suspiciously so, well above market value. Enough to make even Serafina overlook her usual skepticism. "And the occupancy clause?" Elara asked. Maya grinned. 90 days. They think it's a gift. Really, it's the countdown to their eviction. By the time they realize it, it'll be too late. Elara signed. The pen scratched across the page, sealing more than a contract. It sealed a new chapter of her life. 2 days later, she overheard Serafina on the phone in the drawing room, her voice uncharacteristically giddy. Yes, the offer came in anonymously. More than we dreamed of. Of course we accepted. 90 days to transition. A blessing, really. Elara smiled faintly from the hallway. A blessing, indeed. But the acceptance of the offer only sharpened Serafina's cruelty. With the illusion of salvation ahead, she shed the thin veneer of civility she had once shown Elara. At breakfast, she criticized Elara's posture. At lunch, she sneered at her cheap clothes. In the evenings, she reminded her that she was lucky to have been taken in. One afternoon, Elara entered her room to find her closet half empty. Dresses she had carefully hung were gone. Mother needed more space, Leo explained casually when she confronted him. It's temporary. Elara clenched her fists. She took my clothes, Leo. He sighed, rubbing his temples. Don't make this harder than it is. She's under a lot of stress. And I'm not. Elara snapped. His silence was answer enough. That night, as Serafina sipped wine by the fire, she smirked. Once the sale is finalized, darling, Leo and I are going to travel. Italy, perhaps. Finally, we'll live as we deserve. Elara smiled serenely, hiding the storm in her chest. That sounds wonderful. Inside, she counted the days. Each insult, each humiliation was fuel. The countdown had begun, and when it ended, the Thornawoods would learn that the house they so desperately clung to was already lost. The 90 days were slipping away like sand through an hourglass, and with each passing week, Leo grew more restless. At first, he carried himself with swagger, bragging to his friends about the big sale, dropping hints about his future investments. But as the supposed payout date drew nearer, cracks began to show. Elara noticed the late-night phone calls, the tense whispers, the way his hands shook when he thought no one was watching. One evening, she found him in the study, hunched over his phone. His voice was frantic, sharp. What do you mean the transfer hasn't gone through? You told me it was guaranteed. A pause, then louder. No, listen. That money was supposed to be here weeks ago. I have obligations, debts. I can't. He stopped abruptly when he noticed Elara in the doorway. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair disheveled. Elara, he said, forcing a smile. Just business. She crossed her arms. Business. Or gambling. The mask slipped. For a moment, she saw the raw desperation beneath. You don't understand. This money, it's everything. Without it, we're finished. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Money has a way of showing people's true colors. She tilted her head. Funny. I thought we already were. Leo's jaw tightened. He turned back to his phone, dismissing her. But Elara knew, he was unraveling. The breaking point came on a stormy Friday night. Rain lashed against the tall windows of the estate, thunder rattled the chandeliers. Leo stumbled in near midnight, reeking of whiskey. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie loose. Elara sat on the staircase, sketchbook abandoned on her lap, watching him sway. Where have you been? She asked quietly. He laughed bitterly. Where haven't I been? Bars, casinos, anywhere I can forget that this house, this glorious house, is gone. Her stomach knotted. What do you mean, gone? Leo staggered closer, waving his arms. Sold, Elara. Weeks ago. Serafina thinks we're rich, but we've got nothing. No payout, no security. The house, our last chance, it's already slipping away. Where's the money, huh? Where's the damn money? His voice rose to a shout, echoing through the cavernous halls. Serafina appeared at the top of the stairs in her silk robe, eyes wide. Leo, what are you saying? Leo's laugh was manic. I'm saying the house is gone, mother. It's been sold, signed, sealed. We're living on borrowed time, and I don't even know who the hell owns us anymore. Serafina's face paled, her hand gripping the banister for support. No, that's impossible. The buyer is a ghost. Leo roared. An anonymous phantom who bought us out and left us with nothing. Elara sat still, her heart pounding. She had imagined this moment, Serafina's mask cracking, Leo's facade shattering. But witnessing it was something else entirely. Neither of them noticed the faint smile tugging at her lips. The next morning, silence hung heavy over the estate. Breakfast was a strained affair, Serafina pushing food around her plate, Leo nursing a pounding hangover. By midday, the tension exploded. Elara was packing a small suitcase in her room. She had decided enough was enough. Her dignity had been chipped away piece by piece, but last night proved it was gone entirely. She would leave, quietly, without a scene. But Leo had other plans. He barged into the room, eyes wild. You did this." She froze. "What are you talking about?" "You sabotaged everything," he spat. "The sale, the money, it's you, isn't it? You've been scheming behind my back." Her grip tightened on the suitcase handle. "Leo, you're drunk and paranoid." He lunged, snatching the suitcase from her hand. With a roar, he dragged it into the hall and hurled it down the grand staircase. Clothes, shoes, sketches scattered like broken dreams. Serafina and the other Thornwoods appeared, drawn by the commotion. But none of them moved. None spoke. They stood, watching silently as Leo's rage consumed him. "You don't belong here," he shouted, pointing at her. "You never did." Elara's chest burned, humiliation searing her skin like fire. But instead of breaking, she straightened her back. "Maybe you're right," she said calmly, her voice carrying through the stunned silence. "But at least I know who I am. Can you say the same?" The staircase was littered with her belongings, a messy trail of her life reduced to rubble. Elara descended slowly, deliberately, each step a declaration. She crouched, gathering her clothes, folding them neatly back into the battered suitcase. Not one Thornwood moved to help. The silence was louder than any insult. When she reached the bottom, she zipped the suitcase shut and lifted it with steady hands. She turned to face them all, Leo with his flushed cheeks, Serafina with her frozen mask of pride, the rest of the family shifting uncomfortably. Her voice was quiet, but it sliced through the air like glass. "Thank you for reminding me exactly what I deserve. And it's not this." She walked toward the door, head held high. Every step felt lighter, as though she was shedding chains. The heavy oak doors creaked open, letting in the crisp evening air. Without a backward glance, Elara crossed the threshold. The sound of the door closing behind her was not defeat. It was liberation. Her new apartment was nothing like Thornwood Estate. It was modest, a sun-drenched loft with creaky floors and mismatched furniture. But it was hers. Every corner reflected her choices, her freedom. She unpacked her sketchbooks, spreading them across the desk by the window. For the first time in months, inspiration flowed. Lines became walls, curves became arches, blueprints became visions of a future she could shape. One afternoon, Maya dropped by, carrying takeout. She whistled, looking around. Well, not bad for a woman who just walked out on a palace. Elara smiled, handing her a glass of wine. It wasn't a palace. It was a cage. This is home. They ate on the floor, laughing until tears rolled down their cheeks. For the first time since her parents' death, Elara felt something close to joy. As the sun set, casting golden light across her sketches, she realized something profound. She didn't just survive the Thornwoods. She had grown. Every insult, every betrayal had forged her into steel. She wasn't just an architect of buildings anymore. She was the architect of her own destiny. It had been weeks since Elara left Thornwood, and life was beginning to taste sweet again. Her apartment smelled of lavender candles and fresh paper, her sanctuary. Outside, the world rushed on, but inside, she had peace. One afternoon, as she was sketching by the wide window, the sharp rap of knuckles echoed through the loft. Startled, she set her pencil down and opened the door. Standing there was Serafina Thornwood. The woman who had once glided through marble halls now looked diminished. Her silk robe had been replaced by a crumpled cardigan, her perfect hair now brittle strands of silver. Tears streaked her face, and her eyes, once cold and sharp, were swollen from crying. "Elara," Serafina gasped, clutching the doorframe. Please, you have to help us." Elara's breath caught, though she quickly steadied herself. "Serafina, they've put the eviction notice on the gates," Serafina choked out. Leo can't find the money. The house is gone. We have nowhere to go. She reached for Elara's hand, trembling. You're kind. I know you are. Please, just a little time. An extension. Elara stared at the woman who had mocked her, humiliated her, stripped her of dignity. The woman who had laughed at her pain. Kindness had always been Elara's nature. But kindness had limits. Elara's voice was quiet, almost gentle, but there was steel beneath it. When my parents died, Serafina, I lost everything. And when I came to your home, desperate, you gave me nothing but cruelty. Do you remember? Serafina flinched. I was scared. I didn't mean. You meant every word, Elara cut in. Every sneer, every insult. You threw my dignity down a staircase and expected me to crawl back. She straightened her shoulders. I won't. Serafina's tears spilled freely now. Elara, you don't understand. We'll be ruined. Homeless. Please. For a moment, Elara's father's letter flashed in her mind. Money has a way of showing people's true colors. She saw Serafina's colors as vividly as if they had been painted across her face. Desperation, entitlement, arrogance. Elara stepped back, her hand tightening on the door. When my world fell apart, you offered me a gilded cage. When I left, you offered me silence. You showed me no mercy, Serafina. And I will show you none. With a final, resolute movement, she closed the door. The sound echoed like thunder in the quiet loft. On the other side, Serafina sobbed, her pleas fading into silence. The day of the handover dawned crisp and bright. Thornawood Estate, once a fortress of pride, stood stripped, paint peeling, shutters rattling, its grandeur hollowed out. Elara arrived in a tailored suit, her posture radiating confidence. Maya walked beside her, papers in hand, grinning like a cat with cream. On the driveway, a young couple waited nervously, their hands clasped together. They looked at the house not with desperation, but with hope. We can't believe this is happening, the woman whispered to Elara. We've dreamed of a home like this. It's where we'll start our family. Elara smiled warmly. It's yours now. Treat it with love, not pride. That's how it will last. She handed them the keys, the very keys she had once feared, despised, longed to escape. Now, they were tokens of victory. As the couple walked inside, Elara lingered for a moment, running her fingers along the iron gates. She wasn't just handing over a house. She was handing over a chapter of her life. And closing it forever. From across the street, Leo watched. He was thinner now, his once perfect suits hanging loose, his hair unkempt. The swagger was gone, replaced by a hollow stare. He watched Elara walk out of the gates, radiant in the morning light. Her heels clicked against the pavement, each step exuding strength he had never imagined in her. His mother's sobs echoed in his ears, but he didn't comfort her. He couldn't. He was broken, by debt, by pride, by the realization that the woman he thought he owned had outplayed him completely. In his pocket, he carried an old photograph, him and Elara at a university fair, smiling, arms around each other. Back then, he had believed she was his prize, his possession. Now she was gone, and the frame was empty. His kingdom had crumbled. The queen had claimed her throne. Years later, Elara stood on the balcony of her custom-designed home, overlooking sprawling gardens that bloomed with color. The house wasn't massive, but it was exquisite, every line, every window, every curve crafted by her own hand. Inside, laughter spilled from the kitchen where Maya and friends gathered. Real friends. Family she had chosen. Her architectural firm had flourished, her name celebrated in design magazines, her projects praised for their warmth and innovation. She built not for prestige, but for people. For lives. As the evening sun dipped, casting golden light across her face, Elara closed her eyes. She thought of her parents, of her father's steady wisdom. Trust your instincts. Be wise. Be brave. She had done all three. The Thornawood Estate was a distant memory now, its cold marble halls nothing but a ghost in her story. What remained was stronger, an empire built on resilience, integrity, and courage. Elara smiled, lifting her glass of wine to the horizon. She was no one's guest, no one's companion, no one's pawn. She was the architect of her own destiny. the queen of her own, truly golden, kingdom. The end.